The laughter was quiet, but in the sterile silence of the command briefing room, it echoed like thunder. It was a low, dismissive chuckle that started with one man and rippled through the tense air, a wave of subtle mockery washing over the assembled pilots. The man at the source of it all was General Marcus Thorne, a figure carved from granite and legend, whose chest was a constellation of medals earned in conflicts most people only read about in history books. His eyes, the color of a winter storm, were fixed on the slight woman standing at perfect attention before him. He tapped a polished finger on the digital roster displayed on his datapad, the name glowing in the room's dim blue light. Captain Eva Rostova, and beneath it, her call sign. He let the silence hang for a moment, a tool he wielded with the same precision as a weapon. Then he spoke, his voice a low rumble that commanded absolute obedience. "Sparrow," he said, tasting the word as if it were something foul. "Are we sending birds into a war zone, Captain? I hope you can do more than just chirp when the flak starts." The pilots, a collection of the best and bravest men and women who lived on the edge of a razor, shifted uncomfortably. Some offered thin, sycophantic smiles in the general's direction. A few glanced at Eva with a mixture of pity and second-hand embarrassment. Captain Rostova did not flinch. Her face, framed by dark hair pulled back into a severe regulation bun, remained a mask of placid neutrality. Her posture was ramrod straight, her gaze fixed on the far wall, just over the general's shoulder. She did not look at him, nor did she acknowledge the snickers from her peers. She simply existed in the storm of his scorn, an island of stillness. This story is about what happens when the world judges you by your cover, only to find the pages within hold a power they could never comprehend. If you believe that true strength is not loud but proven, then make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications, because you are about to witness the moment a sparrow taught a hawk how to fly. General Thorne, clearly displeased by her lack of a cowed response, pressed on. "This mission is not a training exercise," he continued, his voice hardening, his gaze sweeping over the entire room now. "The Cerberus network has held the Elysian Pass for 2 decades. Every pilot we've sent against it has either been shot down or forced to retreat. It's an automated fortress, a meat grinder. The brass wants it broken." Today, he gestured to the massive holographic map dominating the center of the room. A web of angry red lines and pulsating icons represented the enemy's defenses. It looked impenetrable, a digital fortress of death. "Your objective is to punch a hole through the central command node. It's a suicide run, plain and simple. We need fangs, we need talons, we need predators." His eyes landed back on Eva, a glint of cruel irony in them. Not sparrows. Beside Eva, Major Kalen Viper Vance stood unmoving, his jaw tight. He was a veteran of a dozen campaigns, his face a roadmap of hard-won experience. He had flown with Eva. He knew what the general and the others did not. He saw the flicker of something in her eyes. Not hurt, not anger, but a deep, cold focus, like a lens snapping into perfect clarity. It was the look of a hunter. Eva offered a single clipped response, her voice even and devoid of emotion. "Understood, sir." The simplicity of her words seemed to insult the general more than any argument could have. He scoffed, turning away from her as if she were a piece of malfunctioning equipment. He continued his briefing, outlining the impossible odds, the sheer lethality of the mission, but a seed of public humiliation had been planted. Everyone in that room, from the lowest-ranking technician to the legendary general, had dismissed her. They saw her simple, unadorned flight suit, her quiet demeanor, her unassuming call sign, and they passed judgment. They saw a sparrow. They had no idea they were looking at an eagle in disguise. The walk from the briefing room to the hangar bay was a corridor of silence. The other pilots, now sobered by the grim reality of the mission, walked in tight clannish groups, their voices low and technical. They discussed flight paths, weapon loadouts, and countermeasures. None of them spoke to Eva. She was an outsider, marked by the general's disapproval. She walked alone, her footsteps echoing softly in the cavernous hallway, a solitary figure. Moving towards a destiny no one else could see, The hangar itself was a symphony of controlled chaos. The air hummed with the thrum of power generators and smelled of ozone and hydraulic fluid. Ground crews swarmed over the sleek, deadly forms of the Viper-class strike fighters, their movements a blur of practiced efficiency. Ava's fighter, designated Sparrow 1, sat waiting for her under the harsh white lights. It was no different from the others, a machine of gray composite alloys and lethal potential. Yet in that moment, it felt like an extension of her own quiet solitude. She began her pre-flight check, her hands moving with an unhurried grace over the fuselage. She wasn't just inspecting the craft, she was communing with it. Her gloved fingers traced the rivet lines, rested on the cold glass of the canopy, and brushed against the warheads nestled in their pylons. To the casual observer, it was a routine procedure. To those who knew what to look for, it was a ritual. She was attuning herself to the machine, making it a part of her. "Don't let him get to you, Sparrow," the voice came from beside her. It was Major Vance, his helmet tucked under his arm. He leaned against the fighter's landing gear, his expression unreadable. "His opinion doesn't change the sky." Eva paused. Her inspection, looking at him for the first time since the briefing. Her eyes, which had been so distant, now held a spark of connection. "He's not the mission, Major," she replied, her voice just as quiet as before. "He's just noise, and you can't hear noise at Mach 3. A slow smile spread across Vance's face. That was the Eva he knew. Unflappable, resilient. He had seen her fly in simulations that would have broken lesser pilots. He had seen her solve complex tactical problems in the blink of an eye, her mind working at a speed that was almost frightening. He knew the name Sparrow wasn't about fragility. It was about precision. A sparrow is a small bird that can navigate the tightest spaces, a creature of impossible agility that can dart through a forest of branches without touching a single one. It was a name she had earned, not one she had been given lightly. "Cerberus Network learns," Vance said, his tone shifting to professional concern. "It adapts. Tactics from the last sortie are already obsolete. It's going to throw something new at us." "It always does," Eva said, turning her attention back to the cockpit. "It expects a hammer. It's looking for brute force." Herself up the ladder and settled into the ejection seat, the cockpit closing around her like a second skin. As the canopy sealed, the deafening noise of the hangar was replaced by the soft, intimate hum of the fighter's internal systems. This was her sanctuary. This was her world. Here, there were no generals, no mocking laughter, no judgment. There was only the machine, the sky, and the mission. Through the armored glass, she saw Vance give her a slow, deliberate nod. A sign of faith. She returned. And then her focus narrowed until the entire universe consisted of the glowing displays of her heads-up display. The engine spooled up with a rising scream, a crescendo of power that vibrated through her very bones. One by one, the fighters taxied onto the runway, their navigation lights blinking in the pre-dawn gloom. The tower gave the clear for takeoff. Ava's turn came. She pushed the throttle forward, and the afterburners kicked in with a raw physical punch, slamming her back into her seat. The world outside became a streak of gray and white as Sparrow 1 hurtled down the runway and clawed. Its way into the sky, a single, determined soul, ascending into the crucible. The squadron sliced through the upper atmosphere, a phalanx of silver darts against the deep indigo of near space. Below them, the world was a curved canvas of cloud and ocean. The Elysian Pass was a scar on the continent, a jagged mountain range bristling with unseen threats. As they approached, the operational theater, the cums once filled with professional chatter, grew quiet. Every pilot was locked in, their senses straining for the first sign of danger. From the command center, a vast, darkened amphitheater of screens and consoles, General Thorne watched their approach. His arms were crossed, his posture rigid. He stood on a raised platform, a king observing his knights riding into a dragon's lair. The central screen showed the squadron's formation as a collection of neat green triangles. The border of the Cerberus network was a menacing red line. The moment they crossed it, all hell broke loose. The network didn't just wake up, it erupted. A storm of electronic warfare signals flooded the comms, turning them into a screech of static. Simultaneously, the sky lit up with the launch trails of dozens of surface-to-air missiles. Evasive maneuvers. Break formation. Major Vance's voice, strained but commanding, cut through the noise. The green triangles scattered, each pilot fighting their own desperate battle for survival. The sky became a three-dimensional maze of explosions and laser fire. On the tactical display, the first green triangle blinked and then vanished. Talon 3 is down. Someone screamed. Then another. Wraith 6 is hit. I'm losing control. The enemy was overwhelming them. The Cerberus network wasn't just defending, it was hunting. It was using new tactics, creating ghost signals, herding them into kill boxes. It was a slaughter. General Thorne's face was a mask of grim frustration. His strategy, a full frontal assault designed to overwhelm with sheer firepower, was failing catastrophically. He was losing his best pilots, his most advanced fighters, and the mission was falling apart before his eyes. He watched the tactical map, a terrible sense of helplessness washing over him as his predators were being systematically dismantled. Then, through the chaos and the cacophony, a new voice emerged. It was calm, clear, and utterly unshaken. All call signs. This is Sparrow. Cease random evasion. The network is using your reactions to predict your next move. Fly straight for. 3 seconds on my mark was such a counterintuitive command, such a suicidal suggestion, that for a moment, no one reacted. Fly straight into a storm of missiles. It was insanity. Trust me, the voice said again, with a quiet authority that cut through fear. Mark, on the tactical display, one green triangle stopped its frantic dance. For 3 terrifying seconds, the icon for Sparrow 1 flew in a perfectly straight line. It's the enemy missiles, their predictive algorithms thrown into chaos by this illogical behavior. It's overshot their mark, streaking harmlessly past her. A collective gasp went through the command center. Thorne leaned forward, his knuckles white as he gripped the railing. Viper, on my 6. Drag the incoming fire west, Eva commanded. Hammer, you have a clear shot at the eastern relay tower. Take it now. Suddenly, she wasn't just a pilot. She was the conductor of an orchestra of destruction. Her icon on the map began to move with a fluid, lethal grace. She wasn't just dodging. She was weaving, using the enemy's own attack patterns against them. She flew into the tightest canyons, her wings mere feet from the rock walls, forcing the missiles to crash into the mountainsides. She used the plasma trails of enemy fire as a screen, vanishing and reappearing where they least expected. Her voice on the comms was the only constant, a calm anchor in the storm, giving precise orders, calling out targets, and coordinating a defense that was rapidly becoming a devastating offense. The pilots, their initial hesitation replaced by a desperate faith, followed her lead without question. They became a cohesive unit again, guided by the Sparrow they had all mocked. In the command center, no one spoke. They just watched, mesmerized. General Thorne's arrogance had completely evaporated, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated awe. He was witnessing something impossible, a level of flying that didn't just break the rules of engagement. It rewrote them entirely. The central node, Ava's voice cut in. It shielded from above. The only approach is through the primary cooling vent. It's a 2-meter aperture. Murmur of disbelief went through the command center. A 2-meter target deep inside the most heavily defended sector, while flying at supersonic speeds. It was not a mission objective. It was a suicide note. I'm going in, she stated, as simply as if she were announcing a change in course. The screen Sparrow 1 broke away from the main fight and dove. A silver streak plummeting towards the heart of the enemy fortress, the world outside. Eva's cockpit became a blur of rock and steel. She was flying through the guts of the Cerberus network, a twisting, mechanical canyon that no sane pilot would ever enter. Alarms screamed in her ears as automated turrets tracked her, their laser fire scorching the air around her fuselage. She ignored them. Her focus was absolute, narrowed down to a single point in the distance, the cooling vent. It was a tiny square of darkness in a wall of gray metal, the single vulnerability in an otherwise invincible beast. Her hands moved on the controls with an economy of motion that was both beautiful and terrifying. Tiny, precise adjustments, each one a life-or-death calculation made in a microsecond. In the command center, the room was so quiet that the hum of the server seemed like a roar. Every eye was glued to the primary screen, which now showed the live feed from Sparrow One's forward camera. They were all in the cockpit with her, experiencing the gut-wrenching velocity, claustrophobic proximity to the canyon walls. General Thorne stood frozen, his breath caught in his chest. He wasn't watching a pilot anymore. He was watching an artist at the peak of her craft. The flying was beyond anything he had ever seen or imagined. It was a fusion of human instinct and machine capability that defied all known parameters of aerial combat. Approaching target, Ava's voice reported, as calm as if she were ordering coffee. The square of darkness grew larger. Automated defenses intensified, creating a solid wall of fire in front of her. Instead of dodging, she did something that made the observers gasp. She accelerated. She used her fighter's own speed as a weapon, a kinetic shield. The enemy's targeting computers, designed to track vehicles at a certain velocity range, couldn't keep up. She was moving too fast, too flawlessly. She was a ghost in their machine. The vent was seconds away. She armed her payload a single, precision-guided munition. She had one shot. She missed. She would slam into the structure at over twice the speed of sound. If she fired too early, the blast doors would close. The timing had to be perfect. The feed from her camera showed the world tilting as she performed a barrel roll, not to evade, but to align her weapon pylon with the aperture at the exact right angle. It was a maneuver of breathtaking audacity. "Payload away," she said. A small, dark shape detached from under her wing and vanished into the vent. Eva didn't wait to see the result. She was already pulling up, her G-suit straining against the crushing force of her ascent. She fired her engines in a final, desperate burst, climbing vertically out of the canyon just as a blinding flash of white light erupted from its depths. A seismic shockwave followed, a silent ripple on the screen that spoke of a cataclysmic explosion deep within the mountain. On the main tactical map, the web of red lines and icons flickered once, twice, and then went dark. The entire Cerberus network, the fortress that had stood inviolable for 20 years, was gone. A stunned silence held the command center for a full 10 seconds. Then the room erupted. Cheers, shouts, and applause echoed off the walls. Technicians and officers were on their feet, embracing each other, their faces streaked with tears of relief and disbelief. The surviving pilots in the sky, their coms now crystal clear, were screaming her call sign. "Sparrow, you did it. Unbelievable." But General Thorne did not cheer. He stood completely still, his eyes fixed on the data that was now flooding the screen. Mission accomplished. All enemy defenses neutralized. And then the final metrics came. A new window popped up, displaying the combat effectiveness rating for Captain Eva Rostova on this single sortie. The number was 99.8%. A new line of text appeared beneath it, a simple, factual statement that landed with the force of a physical blow. Read previous alliance record, 97.2%. Holder, General M. Thorne. The general stared at the screen, his face pale.
Ow.
The record he had held for 2 decades, the one that had been the foundation of his legendary status, had not just been broken. It had been shattered by the quiet woman in the simple flight suit, by the pilot he had mocked, by Sparrow. The hangar bay was a scene of jubilation when the surviving fighters landed. Ground crews rushed to congratulate the pilots, who were all talking at once, their faces lit with the adrenaline of victory and survival. When Ava's canopy hissed open, a hush fell over the crew nearest her. They parted, creating a path for her as she disembarked. They stared at her, not with pity or scorn, but with a reverence usually reserved for heroes and gods. She walked through the hangar, her posture unchanged, her expression still calm, but the air around her was different. It was charged with her accomplishment. She entered the debriefing room. The same pilots who had snickered at her just hours before now stood to attention as she passed. Major Vance caught her eye and gave her a wide, genuine grin, filled with pride. Eva took her place, and the final mission report was projected onto the screen. The numbers, the flight path, the kill count, it was all there, an undeniable testament to what she had done. General Thorne entered the room. The celebratory atmosphere instantly vanished, replaced by a tense, expectant silence. He walked past the other pilots, his gaze locked on Eva. He stopped directly in front of her. For a long moment, he said nothing, simply looking at her, his eyes tracing the lines of her face, as if seeing her for the very first time. The arrogance was gone. The condescension was gone. All that remained was a raw, humbled respect. "Captain Rostova," he began, his voice raspy, with emotion, "I once defined a pilot's worth by the ferocity of their call sign. I believed in thunder. I believed in predators." He took a deep breath. "Today, you taught me that the most powerful force in the sky is not the storm. It is the quiet, perfect, unstoppable flight of a single sparrow navigating through it. Record you broke today. It was mine. It was the best I ever was." He looked away for a second, a flicker of profound emotion crossing his face. "I have never been prouder to see it fall. My judgment was a failure. Your courage was a revelation." He straightened up, pulling himself to his full, imposing height. This time, it wasn't about intimidation. It was about showing respect. He raised his hand in a slow, perfect salute. "My apologies, Captain, and my deepest admiration." Eva held his gaze, and for the first time, a small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. She returned the salute with crisp precision. "Thank you, General." Around them, one by one, every other pilot in the room raised their hand in salute, a silent, powerful chorus of acknowledgement. The nameplate on her flight suit, CPTE Rostova, gleamed under the light, and beneath it the word Sparrow was no longer a joke. It was a legend.